Welcome to Winning with the Burns, a podcast for highly ambitious people who have a burning desire to learn what it takes to win at a high level. Hey guys, thanks for joining us again today. You know, I'm excited today because you guys get to hear from this athlete, and I use that term as an athlete because I mean that's what JR you are. Yeah. I mean you're an athlete. You played all the sports. So hey, thanks for joining today.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, so, you know, let's let everybody know who you are. You grew up, obviously, I know a lot because you graduated with Nick.
Right.
You know, I was that freshman watching you as a senior. You know, I felt like you guys walked on water because you guys were the seniors. You know?
Appreciate that. That was a good little ego boost for today.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, tell everybody, you know, you grew up here in LaGrange.
Yeah. So I grew up here in LaGrange. By the way, thank you for having me because, you know, I've been actually following the podcast and y'all have had some heavy hitters on this thing, man. So I'm honored that you would even think to have me on here. But yeah, I'm from LaGrange. My family moved here in '82. My dad took a coaching job here, and basically he made his bones here. Most people know me as not as JR Revere, but as John's son. You know, Coach Revere's son. And,
yep.
And I was always okay with that, you know. And but I just, you know, I moved here, and after maybe probably a year or two, I realized that, man, this whole, you know, LaGrange thing is a pretty big deal. And, you know, and I start, you know, running into the likes of guys like Vince Sutton and Nate Hill and, you know, Tony Stargill. And I'm just thinking, wow, you know, and my dad was, you know, I mean, he made himself a very integral part of those guys, you know, not just the program, but those guys' lives. And then on top of that, they were these incredible athletes. You know, all of them professional level athletes, and so I just remember thinking at probably about 5-6 years old, thinking, I want to be those guys, you know. And so, you know, just every day at practice, every day, wanting to be around Dad as much as I could, and be around the guys, and then that led to me eventually. Going to middle school, and, you know, I went to, you know, Gardner Middle School, and then, you know, got to LaGrange High, then my time started. And started off a little slow because we were going through a transition period, which, you know, there's a whole story behind that. But we finally got it going, and by my senior year, we kind of all figured it out. It all came together. So, yeah, it was fun to be a part of that and kind of add to the brand of the LaGrange High School. And then I went and signed with Georgia Southern. And had the opportunity to go there and play both baseball and football. And that's when things really took off. And it just kind of always said, you know, I ended my high school career off with a bang. And then it went to another level when I got to college and was able to experience, really, you know, the ground level, the ground floor of winning and learning how to win. Started in my youth and time growing up in LaGrange when I was able to really apply it and really take it to another level, and learn how to really win on a national level was when I went to Georgia Southern. And so, you know, I mean, I leave there with, you know, God knows how many rings, but, you know, 2 national championships in football, you know, played in 3 of them. And then in baseball, we went to 3 straight regionals, and won, you know, 2 conference titles. In that regard. So, you know, there was a lot of winning going on there. And then, you know, I wanted to live out a childhood dream and go play professionally. So, you know, I go start off playing professional football, actually baseball, excuse me. I get drafted by the Colorado Rockies, and I go into that organization, quickly get traded to the Padres and spend a couple of years in the independent league, before I decided, you know, I think it might be a good idea if I get back into football, you know, once baseball kind of ran its course. But you know, all in all, I spent about a decade being a professional athlete, and then, you know, settled down around 2009 was my last competitive, 2010 was my last competitive athletic experience, you know, with a organization or a team. And then since then, just trying to be a good father, dad, you know, community man, businessman, you know, so forth. So
yeah, well, you know, you talked about how you learn how to win, and you know, I was told, because I was, you know, a few years behind you, right. I was told that you dressed out in full pads as, you know, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old,
yeah,
with all those guys, with your dad.
Yeah. The stories, some of them are fabricated, but a lot of it is true. But yeah, you know what, man, you know, Jonathan, I can remember my first, you know, when you experience something that really has an impact on you, I can still remember the first day I walked into that old gymnasium, and I don't remember if it was before spring practice or before camp, but I just remember walking into that, you know, the old football locker room, and there was that big cage to the, that was to, you know, as soon as you walk in, it was to the right. I just remember I was probably about 4 or 5 years old. I don't remember much as a 4 or 5 year old, but I remember going in there and seeing all the guys in there, and boy, they were excited about getting their helmets and their pads. And I remember seeing my dad in there, and this is back when they didn't have the stars on there yet. This was, you know, preseason, but I just remember him ripping tape off, you know, what's your name? Writing the name on the helmet, giving it to the guy. And boy, he's excited, getting his chin strap and mouthpiece all together. And it was like a next guy. And it was just this energy that you just felt like, wow, I didn't know what it was. I just knew I liked it. And so it culminated. I remember this one practice. I remember, you know, one of the things my mom would do, I would beg her, you know, throughout the day, hey, can we go by the practice field? I want to see Dad at practice, you know, and so this one day, you know, if I was a good little boy, you know, she'd take me over there. So this one day, it's almost like dusk. It's like late. And we park right in the, you know, over there at Granger Park, right in that little parking lot. I go down the steps, I run out, and there's a hitting drill going on. It's like, you know, guys are just, you know, in this big old circle, and I'm kind of bobbing and weaving, and I see two guys, man, I mean, they're just freaking going at it. I mean, it's just pow. I mean, and the sound and the you know, the excitement, the intensity, and, you know, and they went 3 times, and all 3 times that they went, boy, it was a show. And it was Nate Hill and Bernard Page. I'll never forget it. And I was just sitting there going, well, whatever this is, I like it. I want to do it.
I want to be a part of it.
I want to be a part of it. So it got to the point where it was borderline obsession. I had my own locker, you know, and I made sure that my locker was next to the guys, to the dudes, you know, the Marty Carters, the, you know, Deshaun Camerons, and, you know, if I could fit in there. And because I just wanted to be like them so much. And I think a lot of my athletic success had a lot to do with them and my experience of being around them. Yeah.
And, you know, that was your father, you know, being around, mentoring those guys, teaching them how to work, you know, because he was my first strength and conditioning coach when I arrived to LaGrange High. And then he was my health teacher as well. But man, that energy that he brought, he made you believe that you could do something special. Yeah.
Well, he always said that when he got here, the weight room was a part of the program, but it wasn't like the guts of the program. Like, they did it because that's just what football, you know. And I think that they would start lifting like a little bit during the summer, and that's kind of how it went. That, you know, it wasn't, you know, by the time we got into high school, I mean, it was a lot more advanced. But, you know, early on, because keep in mind, my dad spent 4 years in South Georgia. And at least in football back in the 70s and 80s, you know, South Georgia was running things in terms of football. And them jokers were like in the weight room every day. Like, it was year round. And so, you know, my dad, you know, at the time, Coach Cronick was the head coach. He's telling those guys that, listen, this is what those guys down there are doing. You know, it ain't enough that we just do a little during the year and try to get it in during the summer and then go out there and play. He says, we got to get on the same page as these guys. So he was really instrumental, and him and I think Larry Prather, Rob Ridings, you know, were some names that they were all on board at really, you know, getting a sophisticated weight program, which it was during that period of the 80s. So I guess from like 82 to like 80, you know, really the whole decade of the 80s, where LaGrange just really took off. So when you get guys that already had that natural talent, but then you develop it.
That's right.
You know, it's funny, you know, they would say, you know, whenever I would go with my dad, you know, because he coached track, or, you know, any of the like coaches conventions, or, you know, basketball games, you know, any place where, you know, we would see other coaches from other schools, they would say to him like, hey, you know, so what's it like coaching at the University of LaGrange, you know? But it was true, because I mean, we were just dominating in every sport. I mean, not just football, you know, was getting on a national scale, but basketball. People forget our basketball programs were really good, girls and guys.
Oh yeah.
You know, our track programs. I mean, my dad had a couple of top 5, top 3 track, top 3 track teams that finished in the state. So it was just like everything we were touching was just turning gold. So he was a big part of that, and he loved every minute of it.
Well, he was a big part of it because he was in there lifting weights with them.
Yeah, he would, and I think that was the trick. Like, I'm not going to just ask you to do it and just blow a whistle and yell at you. No, I'm gonna show you how to do it. I'm gonna show you what it looks like. I'm gonna show you what you look like after you're finished. And I think a lot of those guys took to that because they looked at my dad. He thought, well, because he was, when he got there, he was 27, 28 years old. I mean, he was in the prime of his life. And he's running 40s with them and he's giving them the business. And it's like, and these are some of the best athletes in the state. And they respected him for it. So whatever he said, they would do. And
he led by example.
He led by example, yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, he taught you how to work at a young age also in baseball because I remember – people know what we're talking about. You had the old pea gravel, cages over there.
Yeah.
And I remember you transitioning over to being a switch hitter. Mm-hmm. And I remember your dad just getting you get more reps. More reps.
Yeah.
So he instilled in you a lot of the principles that you were able to take to college.
Right.
And when you got to college, you played for what, Paul Johnson?
Yeah, I played for Paul Johnson, the great Paul Johnson. I also played for Jack Stallings. Who just, he's just got into the Georgia Baseball Hall of Fame or Georgia Athletics Hall of Fame, whatever, but he was a Hall of Fame baseball coach. I hate I only got to play with him for 1 year because I learned so much from him, but being able to play for two guys that were the best at what they did was incredible for me and learning so much because like I said, I knew quite a bit, in terms of, character and hard work and, but these guys, they showed me a little bit more and then forced you to apply it, because they were also hard-nosed, hard-driven guys, bottom line guys. And they were winners, they were winners and it was great just to be around them and just to be able to soak up everything that they offered to me.
Well, see, I believe that, and I don't know a whole lot about football, but I believe that the quarterback is like the captain. He's like the leader.
Yeah.
And, in high school, I was listening to a story that Coach Branch gave me. He said he thinks he remembers going into your freshman year.
Right.
You guys were up in maybe Tennessee or something and just got beat. Did not play good at all.
Yeah.
And you're an upcoming freshman.
Right.
You got all these upperclassmen. And Coach Branch said something. Anybody got anything to say? And you kind of threw your hand up. I don't know if you remember this.
I do, yeah.
You threw your hand up and you were like, guys, this is not what a Granger does.
Yeah.
We don't play this way.
Yeah.
You as a young underclassman, I guess had the fortitude to stand up and say, hey, guys, we this is not what we do.
Yeah. And that wasn't the only time that I had to have that conversation. And I'm gonna be honest with you, our generation, our era, and like I said, there was a transition period when me and your brother came in our freshman year, especially with football. But there was a transition period where a lot of the coaches that were around during that heyday of the 80s, they had left.
Yep.
For other, because they were going on to bigger, better things or, maybe family reasons or whatever. They were gone. So I remember at one point just sitting around, this is my freshman year, sophomore year roughly, and I'm just looking around, I'm just going, wow, the only guys that were from the era was my dad, Coach Branch, Coach Traylor. And I'm thinking, man, this is, so it wasn't a whole lot of guys that were around during the ground floor of it. But Jonathan, I remember everything. I didn't forget anything. And it was like, I'm kind of looking around and, in my mind, I'm thinking back to the way it used to be. And then I'm looking around here and I'm going, this ain't adding up. This is something ain't right. And so it bothered me because, I go my whole life going, I'm going to be a Granger. I'm going to be just as good as, Hudson and Cameron. And I'm going to be just, Barry.
Can't wait to put that uniform on.
I can't wait to, show them guys that, what I can do. And then all of a sudden, here we go. And, we're not going to the playoffs. We 0-4. My sophomore year, I think we lose our first 4 games. And that was talking about a character building year. I just thought, no, it's got to be better than this. This can't be the way. But I think we got soft and happy. We got happy. We got comfortable. That's the word. Yeah. It was because they made it look so easy. But the thing that I tried to tell my guys that, listen, it looked easy, but those guys worked their butts off. They were coachable. They were accountable, all those things. And so, it was probably a couple of times I had to say that. And luckily, at least for my era, we we figured it out before it was too late. Yeah.
Yep. And you see, you had that leadership instilled in you. So when you go to college, no wonder Georgia Southern wanted a guy like you to play for them, because they're like, look, he's got the skill set, number one.
Yeah.
But he's also got the leadership that we can build on.
Yeah.
And you guys, I think you played for a national title 3 straight years.
It's 3 straight years.
And you won 2 of them.
And won 2 of them. Yeah, yeah. And we had a chance to go to the 4th one, but we just ran out of gas. You know, that was my senior year. And I tell people all the time, you're not going to win all the time, but if you do things the right way and you follow that blueprint of winning, you'll find it doesn't guarantee you're going to win, but you'll find yourself winning more than losing.
Yep.
And I think I learned that in high school, but I really learned that, because like I said, I was taught it in high school. And it was applied, but it was really applied on a major level when I got to college, and it really set my mindset straight that, the great teams, the great dynasties, the great businesses, they don't win all the time. Whoever competes against them, if they beat them, they get out within an inch of their life. It is a hard loss. It ain't a blowout. It's you better bring that A game, or you're gonna get dusted. But more times than not, we're going to win. And because we're so disciplined in our winning, and we have created such a habit of winning, we do it consistently all the time.
That's it.
And that's the thing that I learned that I still carry with me to this day.
Well, you still show up and do the work, even though you don't feel like it. Mm-hmm. See, business to me is so much tougher than being an athlete.
Right.
Because athletes, they get an off season.
Right.
It's like we get to, it's not game time. We can work on some things.
Right.
But in business, you have to show up every day.
Yeah.
And the day you don't show up, you pay dividends on it down the road.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's about as simple as that. There's also some leadership involved, because you can't, human nature, we want to go every day, but we just can't. So there's got to be some other people involved that also understand your methods, that have the same drive, the same desire, and have the same level of understanding of what you're trying to get accomplished. I've always felt that, and that was one thing I learned in being a quarterback, that as good as I was, and whatever my skills would be, I couldn't do it on my own. And my best teams were where I had guys around me that were just as good, if not better. And in turn, they made me better. Hopefully I made them better, but it was, we won wars by numbers. And when you got a bunch of guys and a bunch of people that understand and have an understanding of what needs to get done, and you're doing it together, it's amazing what you can accomplish, But you're talking about individually. Yeah. There was a quote, when I was a kid, because I was really big into football, you're learning about who were the great coaches and players and, football history. And of course you hear about Vince Lombardi. So I remember, I think I might've been in 4th grade, getting a book on Vince Lombardi, because I saw one of the NFL films did a little show on him or special, whatever. Yeah. And so in his book, one of his famous quotes is that, that winning is a habit.
That's it.
Yeah. So is losing.
That's so true.
So I thought, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me if you just follow this simple little plan, or just, create some good habits, that, you can be a winner, you can win, maybe not all the time, but most of the time. And that, that was another moment that that switch, flipped for me. So whenever there was, hey, if you work hard, if you do this, X, Y, and Z, I was all in. I never quibbled. I never thought, I ain't, I ain't doing that. I was never that guy. If you mean to tell me this is what I need to do to be the best that I can be, then I'm all in. Matter of fact, I'm going to try to perfect it. That was always, my mentality. So, if you can do that individually and then get people around you to understand that too, man, you can move mountains.
Well, how tough was it? And I know physically it was very demanding, but you go from football season, you've been beat up. You play late because you're playing for the national championship.
Right.
And then, physically you got to get ready for baseball season coming up.
Right.
What was the mental game like for you going from football to baseball? It was like, man, we just won the national championship, and now I'm going to go play baseball when I'm probably going to get out 1 out of every 3 times, 1 out of every 4 times.
Yeah. So one of the things I learned in my time, again, you start with my parents and the way they raised me and my sisters and brother, was that, no matter what you do, no matter what you're involved in, you don't ever take an opportunity for granted. You always put your best foot forward. That success principle was the foundation of, everything that I did. So it didn't matter if it was football season, baseball season, I was always going to put my, best foot forward. But one of the things that I know I learned from my dad was, you have to, if you want to have the right approach, it's good to have the right approach. It's good that to put your best foot forward. But if you don't have the energy and the stamina to do it, then you can want it all you want to. It's not going to work. So you have to you have to live right. You have to put your body and take care of yourself and put your body in the right position. So the three principles that I learned, being disciplined, being accountable, and then being tough.
That's good.
Yeah. Discipline, again, putting off, and one of the great lessons I learned, growing up was, you got to put off some good times to get to some great times. So that meant that, okay, to get through this football season, I couldn't go to every party.
Oh yeah.
Right. I couldn't go to spring break because I was playing baseball and then having to jump and go play some football. I couldn't, I didn't have a summer vacation. I couldn't go to that barbecue or whatever. And if, like I said, if I did, it was like for a moment in time, and then boom, I was right back to the grind of doing whatever I needed to do. I couldn't stay up all night. I had to get my rest. I had to make sure I hydrated. That I was living right. And because I did those things, it allowed me to have those opportunities to be my best self on the field of play.
That's a thing that I think a lot of people struggle with. But I'm going to miss out on this party.
Some party, yeah.
I'm going to miss out on this. I mean, you don't understand. We get the FOMO deal.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Fear of missing out.
Fear, yeah. And FOMO, I like that. Yeah. I like, and you're right. And boy, those were some painful days. Because,
you're 19, 20 years of
old,
age, and you're away from home.
Yeah.
It would have been so easy to say, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm not going to go work on my craft. I'm going to go party.
It's easy because the distractions are out there. Everybody, we can do a top 10 or, who's got the prettiest co-eds on campus. But every campus has got at least a set that's going to get you. I mean, there are plenty of opportunities out there.
That's right.
To get into or to be distracted and something that's going to lead you away from the bottom line, which is to get better. So, I think, in those moments, be it temptation to get away from your discipline, the moments of strife, the moments where you're in, you're in that mindset of doubt, those going through those tough times. I think there are moments where you have to start learning how to talk to yourself instead of listen to yourself. And that was another skill that I acquired where, if I listen to myself because I'm a human being, it's going to probably be negative and I'm probably going to submit to that temptation.
That's it.
But if I talk to myself and I talk myself out of it, it's going to keep me on that path of true north. So, I don't miss out on that time of development. I don't miss out on, my opportunity for that. Because at the end of the day, when I always tell myself, is this what you really want? Is hanging out with that pretty girl? Is that what you really want? Or, whatever, going to that party, hanging out with your boys, going to kick it, on the beach, on spring break. Is that what you want? Or do you want to hold up that trophy? Do you want to be an All-American? Do you want to be, Player of the Year, All Conference? Do you want to be, and that's what I wanted. That's so good. Yeah, that's where my heart was. And here's the thing, and I tell kids this all the time. God is good. If you're obedient and you're disciplined, He'll reward you somehow, in some way. I accomplished all those things. I was a Player of the Year. I was an MVP. I was the captain of my team. I was, my name was up there on the marquee. Because
you told yourself it's more important for me to work on my craft and be the person that I set out to be.
And be the person you set out to
be. As opposed to saying, you know what, that would be a lot of fun down on the beach, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And I told him, I said, listen, if I told you that I never went to a party and I never, you're going to.
We know you, JR.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have a good time, but I think, keeping things in perspective. If you get to a point where one is becoming more of a priority than the other, that's when you're in trouble. And I never let that side become a priority. And it like I said, it allowed me for me to be my best self on every stage, especially the biggest stages. And you know, you look back and I'm happy to say that I don't have any regrets. You know, I'm you know, that I exhausted everything and did everything that I possibly could. And I'm glad I did it.
Well,
you know?
you paid for the price of discipline, and you endured discipline as opposed to living with the pain of regret.
Right,
well,
exactly.
What if I would have done this? Maybe we could have won another title. What if I would have done this? You know, maybe I'd have got drafted a little higher. What if I'd have done this?
So, you know, it's funny. I tell kids, you know, so I said, well, just like I told you. So I went 3 years in a row. We just missed out my senior year. And you know, I get a chance, I guess, you know, on top of what I could add to my resume is, you know, speaker. But I get an opportunity to go and talk to churches and teams, and God knows how many times I've been over LaGrange High and talk to those guys. But, you know, you get these opportunities to talk to youth and you talk to teams or, you know, businesses or whatever. And I tell that story from time to time that, you know, kind of like what I was saying before, you know, you're not going to win all the time, but those times that you do miss, they're very far and few in between because you've created such a habit of being excellent. And so what I've learned whenever I tell them that story, especially the kids, they're so impressed by the awards and the player of the years and, oh, you were an All-American, really, you know, and, you know, what, you were all conference in 2 sports, you know, and the championships. And, you know, I tell them, yeah, I got about 8 or 9 rings that I won in college, you know, big diamonds in them and everything. They're impressed with that. But where I get their attention is when I tell them about the time I failed.
That's it.
And I think I impress people by my success, but I impact them more by my failures. And so I tell guys that, yeah, and they's like, well, how'd you handle that? How'd you handle losing, you know, a championship game like that? And I said, guys, I ain't gonna lie to you. When it happened, it bothered me for about 5-10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then I was able to walk away from it, you know.
Because you didn't have a regret.
I did. I said, guys, I did everything. You know, now within the game, there were probably some mistakes made, but that's part of the game. Yeah. That's, you know, rather, you know, especially if you're playing baseball, you're going to fail a lot. It's just one of those things. But I said, but there were mistakes that I could take. They weren't mistakes because I didn't prepare. Man, if I would have trained harder, if I would have, you know, not done this instead of doing this, you know, I might have been in a better place. You know, I know I didn't do any of those things. And so I prepped myself, you know, to a level where it allowed me to go out and give my best effort. I did, and that dude still beat me. Well, you the baddest dude on the planet. I tip my hat to you. There's nothing more I can do. Better luck to me next time. And like I said, I learned those lessons again, you know, thankfully as a young man, you know, and listen to my dad. I know, you know, it's funny, you know, Coach Perdue, you know, he was one that I, you know, used to talk about that specific thing all the time because I remember it was always during homecoming, you know. And he would always tell us because there was always festivities going on, you know, the girls getting all dressed up, we're getting all dressed up, and it was almost like there was more attention on that than it was the game. And he would constantly remind us, guys, there's a reason why they call it homecoming. There's a reason why we're having all this stuff. If this thing called the game did not exist, all this other stuff wouldn't exist.
That's right.
So what's the most important thing?
Take care of business first.
Take care of business first. Nobody's going to care about homecoming if we lose. And it's like, wow, you're right. You know, so that would always keep us focused. But yeah, you take those little habits and, you know, you take them to the next level and then you really put them into use and you find out, oh God, this stuff really does work. And it's not only working, but it's actually propelling you to a higher level. And
then so like you have all these blocks that you're just building a great foundation.
Yes.
As a young adult, you know, and then you go into the real world and you start businesses.
Right.
And so now you're able to work with youth guys. You're helping quarterbacks, young quarterbacks. Right. Mm-hmm. That's what you're doing. It's called what? Next Level Quarterbacks? Yeah,
Next Level Quarterback Training. And I got it started probably around 2012. And what's funny about it is I actually got started, or had the opportunity, I should say, to get started like around 2002. And it was shortly right after I was out of college. And so the luster, my fame was probably, it was at its peak, you know, and people around the state knew who I was. And I, you know, it's like I tell my kids, I say, you know, there's a time, you know, in your dad's life, he was a pretty big deal, you know. And of course, they're just like, yeah, whatever, Dad, you know.
You big-wigging them.
Yeah, like, you know, look, you know, I know I just look like Dad now, but then that was, you know, there was a time where, you know, I was pretty, you know, but I was, so I was getting opportunities from just, I mean, it seemed like everybody, you know, parents and my, you know, friends of my parents, you know, church people, you know, how would you train my son? And, you know, at the time, I think I was in baseball. So I'm like, I'm not interested in that. And so I was telling people no. Because I was still in the mode of I wanted, you know, I was looking to get trained. It was about me. And so you get to a point in your life, which in it's a necessary evil. If you're going to perform on that level and at that height, you have to be a little bit selfish with your time. And you know, I you have to have people around you that are understanding of that. And luckily, I did. You know, be it family members, you know, wife. Children, they understood what Dad was trying to do and allowed me to exhaust it. But once I got to that point in my life where, okay, you know, and I think this was by you know, by divine intervention. You know, the good Lord said, okay, I allowed you to do this. You lived out a dream. Congratulations. Oh, it's time to move on to something else. And that period between 2009 to 2012 was a pretty rough period because, you know, I lost that thing that made me go, which was competition and being on a team and being a leader of a team. And, you know, that, and so I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I got into education because my wife made me. And,
hey, talk about that though, real quick, about from 2009 to 2012 is because there's so many people out there that, you know, we all know them and they were awesome in school. Yeah. They competed and now all of a sudden, they're just not competing in life. Life's beating them down. Yeah. Talk about that mental, you know, battle that you had to talk yourself back into to get back into competing. You know, when I say competing, you're competing change. It's no longer about me. It's like now I need to compete and transfer it to others.
Exactly. So remember those 3 pillars I talked about: discipline, accountability, and then toughness. That's the part where you have to really, that part of your life is where the toughness now comes out because
it's mental toughness.
Yeah, it's a dark place. You know, when you know, it's like anything that you lose, depending on the significance in your life, it's tough to lose it. And I, you know, there's a sports psychologist that, you know, I was, you know, talking to one time, and he said that, you know, it's one of those deals where he called it emotional stamina, psychological stamina. And, you know, he says, you see a lot of athletes, man, they're big, strong, you know, they work out, you know, in the weight room, they, you know, their bodies like Greek guys, you know, they're 4'3", 40s, and they have these unbelievable skills, but then they get into these moments of their life or pressurized moments, stressful moments, and they just melt. They just will crumble. And they built up everything else. The emotional and the psychological part never got built up. They were out of shape. And so, so thankfully, you know, I had some people, mentors, coaches that built that part of me. I was lucky to have the total portion body of the athlete built up. But I think most importantly, it was my spiritual groundedness that allowed me to get through that part.
Yeah.
To work through those emotions. Cause it was, you know, I was pretty lost, you know, and you allow yourself to kind of get you allow yourself to be in this kind of, you know, this is my identity. What I learned through that process was that, you know, being an athlete was something that it wasn't who I was. It's just something that I did.
Yeah.
And I realized that, you know, now I'm at a place in my life where I got to find purpose. So if your life doesn't have purpose, and if you don't have that groundedness or that humility to find your purpose, it's going to be a long road for you. And I think you know, in that purpose is humility. So if we take ourselves too seriously, if you know you think too much of yourself, and especially if you're thinking and looking at the world through a selfish lens, you're going to miss out on your purpose, because most people's purpose is it's not self-serving, it's giving.
Yep.
So when I thought about it again, I think I just made the point. I said, you know, when I was playing, it was all about me, and that was a necessary evil in order for me to be as good as I needed to be. But now,
well, in all fairness, it wasn't necessarily all about you. Yes, it was, but you knew you had to be the best version to help your team. The purpose was the team.
Well, then it goes back to the accountable part. That's I had to be accountable to those guys. But it did require me to kind of be about myself and, hey, what can you give me? What kind of tidbit, you know, what wisdom?
Yes.
You know, what are some things that's going to help me grow and be, you know, that better player, athlete, which I didn't realize was actually making me a better, preparing me to be a better person. But it was all I'm taking, getting, where could I, what could I read? What could I work out? Where could I, where can I go to get better, learn better mechanics, and all of a sudden now it's like, all right, now your purpose is to give that back. Yep. And I think that's how, and again, I'm speaking on a spiritual level here. I think that's what God intended for mankind, is that he intended mankind to, it to be a circle, and nobody to keep what was given to them to themselves.
Be a river, not a swamp.
Yeah, exactly. And to create this, somebody invested in me. Now it's time for me to invest in them. At some point, they're going to invest in somebody else, and that's how we keep this thing going. And I think that's the way he wanted to be. And as I grow and continue to grow, it seems like those parts of society is what runs smoothly. The other parts of society don't do that. It looks real ugly, So, once I found my purpose, that it wasn't about me anymore, that's when I said, okay, let me turn this into something. And it's been rocking and rolling ever since.
So you mentor a lot of young athletes with quarterbacks.
Yes.
You're partnered up in Kane Bradfield.
Yes.
He does a great job.
He does, yes.
I mean, he gets these guys in shape, speed, and agility training. And
you talking about a guy that makes you level up. Oh man. He's the perfect business partner. God
you get around him about 3 minutes, you want to run through a brick wall. It's like, let me sling some weight around.
Yeah. And here's the thing, Kane's always been that way. I've known Kane since high school. So Kane was a big time player, big time recruit out of Heard County. And Kane was like one of the only guys, myself, Marcus Blandenberg, DeMario Shank, we were kind of the guys on our team, and we got to know him because he had family that lived in LaGrange, and we just got to know each other. So he was, guys that were on that level kind of traveling those packs. And so he was one of the only guys outside of the football program that we allowed in that weight room over there. Yeah. So we were like, you're the only one. But I think it was kind of self-serve too. We kind of were hoping that he would transfer and come, just stay with your grandmama, man. Just, stay with your cousin, just come on over here. But he stayed out there, which told me how loyal he was.
That's it.
And I think that's what kind of really attracted me to him, and thought he was a good guy. And then we met up with each other. We played arena football together. So we played arena football for a little while, and that's when we really got together and been connected ever since. So yeah, he's fun to be around.
And you're like, hey, we can do something special. We can help some young athletes.
Yeah.
Maybe tell them some things that we wish we were told.
Right.
And tell them some things that were instilled in us that's helping us today.
Right. Yeah. And like I said, when he came to me, he told me what, because I think he stopped playing about a year or two before I started. So I remember I was working with Diallo Burks, and we were doing a camp together, and man, he comes in with his truck, and he was going to do our warm up period. And I was like, Kane's going to do our speed and agility. Like what? And he gets all these kids. We got all these kids out here, and we got everybody from high school kids to 2-year-olds. He's getting them going. I'm like, wow, he's really good at this. And he told me then, this might have been 2007, 2008. And he told me then, he said, yeah, this I'm thinking about, this is what I'm wanting to do. Because he thought about going into coaching.
Yeah.
And he's like, I kind of don't like coaching. He's like, I'm going to do this. I'm like, all right, man, go right to it. And next thing you know, Marcus Blandenberg tells me, hey, your boy don't, he's got this, he's got a garage and he's got people coming over. And then, about 10 years later, he said, 10, 12 years later, he says, yeah, I'm thinking about, getting this building. And, he's like, yeah, Coach Branch, right? And I'm like, yeah, then I said, he's going to help us get that. What do you think about, us getting into this thing? And I said, yeah, let's do it. And then he was like, hey, what do you think about, and he's just reeling me in, man. He threw out the line, and he's just reeling me in. He's like, hey man, what do you think about, bringing and running your quarterback program, how to, with us partnering? And I was like, man, let's do it, and so it's great to be back working with him, because it's giving me a reason to come back to LaGrange and to somehow in my own little way give back.
Yeah.
To the people in the same way that so many people in this community gave to me. And so it's been fun.
So what ages do you start with, and what is your niche with your quarterbacks right now?
Well, my niche is, I guess if I had to, usually, because I didn't really, honestly, Jonathan, I didn't start really training to be a quarterback till I was like 13, 14 years old. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Everybody's like, oh, you want to be a quarterback all your life. Nah, I really didn't.
I heard you used to run routes.
I used to run routes, and I used to, because that's what my dad did. Mm-hmm. That's what my dad did. That's who he coached, DBs, wide receivers. I think I'm going to be like my dad. And then all of a sudden, I remember one day, it might have been I think it was Donnie Branch that talked him into it. Said, you need to be a quarterback. I'm looking at him like, whatever. I ain't gonna be no quarterback. I thought playing quarterback was boring, and then of course Rodney Hudson came and that completely obliterated that idea. Yeah, I said, oh, okay, so you can play it like that, all right, So, but he kept pushing it, and my dad kind of thought, yeah, you're right, and then and I fought it, Jonathan. I fought it, and then Coach Branch said something that made the best sense. He said, JR, he said, and I think it was the summer going into my 8th grade year. Because I knew my dad was going to finally start letting me play. And he was like, yeah, he needs to get with Pleasance. He needs to start working right now. And I was fighting it tooth and nail. I was like, I just don't, I want to be out there. I want to, get the ball on the sweep and catch deep passes. And, he says, yeah, that's all great. But what if you don't have anybody to get the ball to you? He said, you'd be the greatest wide receiver ever. But if there's nobody, to get the ball to you, how you going to control the game? How you going to dictate? And then, where are your leadership skills now? They're now just all for nothing. And I got to thinking about it. I was like, yeah, you're right. And then I got to thinking, playing quarterback, you get the ball every play. The defense can't dictate if you get the ball or not. It's like, and it just started getting a lot. It started making a lot more sense. So that's when I finally dove into it. But to answer your question, I usually want to start around, beginning of middle school.
Okay.
So about around age 11 or 12. Now, every once in a while, you'll get a kid, Jonathan, that's probably 8 or 9, 10 years old, and boy, they're just
they got it.
Wow. And they can handle the grind, because it is a little bit of a grind to take a kid for, an hour, maybe an hour and 20 minutes and be like, hey, look, we got to be locked in for an hour,
because there's so much detail.
Yeah.
There's detail. There's not just, hey, get the ball, throw it, get the ball, throw it. There's detail with footwork and everything.
Footwork. And that's and that's usually the most difficult part is the body sequencing. And how does the body time up so you can get the ball to fly the way it should? And that's the hardest part. And if you got a kid, usually, your most difficult ages of coordination is between ages 6 and 12. So if you're telling a kid that could barely walk and chew gum, all right, your front foot's got to get down, your arms got to get here, your hips are supposed to do this, and it's all supposed to happen at the same time. Go. And they're not very coordinated. It can get a little bit difficult. So you want to get them at an age where their coordination is a little bit better, where you can tell them some things and they can visualize it and then they can feel it, because they're a little bit more aware with their bodies. And then, you can get them, you can transition into that phase of training a little bit smoother, as opposed to a kid that just, they can't barely grip the ball. They can't, but every once in a while, I think out of my clientele, consistent clients, I probably have 130 clients that are consistent, all over the country.
Yeah.
And that I see at least once or twice, at the most a month. I say that, they're pretty consistent with, setting appointments and, we want to work. Of the 120 or 30, I probably got like maybe 6 that are under the age of 10. Mm-hmm. And like I said, those kids are just, between, I think the youngest I got is 8.
They're unicorns.
They're rare. Yeah. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to grow up to be, whatever, but it's just at this age, they're just really advanced for their age. So, so I look at that, and I also look at the fact that are they mature enough to handle it? Like I would have been that kid that at 8 years old, if my dad decided, hey, go get training from whoever, I've been able to handle it because I was into it. And then, there's some kids that are just right now, maturity wise, they're not ready for that yet. Yeah. So I tell parents, don't push them. Just wait, and let's wait till about middle school, because that's usually the perfect window when a kid is ready emotionally, psychologically for what I call real work, and not just going outside and just playing catch. And they also can understand what's at stake and what they need to do. So, 12, so from like, 10, 12 years old, all the way up to, God, I got kids in college now that are working and training.
So do you have a lot of them come here, or you go meet them? Do you do some Zoom calls?
Yeah, I do.
There's people throughout the
country? I do video analysis, Zoom calls. So, the kid, I got like 5 in Texas. I got, 1 or 2, and one in Minneapolis, one in Indiana, a couple of them, in Tennessee, some in Virginia. So kids just all over the country that, if they can't get to me like that, they'll send in videos. And then if I got some time available, they got some time, I'll fly up there.
Good.
Train them and then come back. So yes and no. I train some of them here. The kids that are locally here, we go to the facility and we train there. And then of course LaGrange College has done a great job, allowing for us to use their facility, use their practice field or whatever. And heck, at one point they gave me the keys to the stadium. I said, you might as well. I mean, I spent more time here than all of y'all, so but that's neither here nor there. But they've opened up the facility so during the summertime we can get outside. So, here I got kids as far as Columbus, kids from Heard County, kids from Harris County, and then of course the kids from from Troop and LaGrange and Callaway will show up. The ones I get the most from are the middle school kids. Now, them jokers are hungry. I'm like, you high school kids, y'all need to get on the, y'all get a little full of yourself. These middle school cats come in and man,
they're hungry for that knowledge.
Yeah, they are. And they
still haven't quite figured out that they're too cool for you.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. There you go. And I told them, I said, those older guys, I said, listen, when you were 12, we were meeting at least once a week. And now I'm seeing you, maybe a couple times a year. I said, nobody's paying you. Nobody's signing scholarships being cool.
That's right.
There's nothing, it's cool. It's a cool thing to experience, but there's some uncool things you have to do to get the opportunity to do it. So which one do you want? And so like, again, a Coach Branchism, winning is cool. That's cool. Like, that's, if you want to be cool, you can, win and then you be the coolest guy ever, so.
There's a podcast out. It's called Winning is More Fun Than Fun is Fun.
Yes.
Going back to your spring break.
Yeah.
It was more fun to win than it was to go have fun.
You're exactly right. And again, that's when you have to talk to yourself and not listen to yourself. Cause like I said, that beach looks nice, and it looks a lot of fun and leisure time. I think naturally as human beings, that's what we want. We work. Why do we work so hard? We work hard because we want to have nice things and live a nice life, and that's why I tell people, I said, that can't be your only motivation because once you get those things, you're going to go soft, because that was the goal. So the goal has to be in the purpose. You have to love what you do. And that purpose is what drives you. And then, off of that, you get to experience all those other things. So,
man, that's awesome. So I love it. So what I've learned today is have a purpose.
Right.
And going after that purpose, have discipline in your life, have accountability, and then you just got to be tough.
You got to be tough.
Mentally, and physically too. If you're in a physically demanding environment, whether it's sports, whether it's working, but you just got to be tough. Yeah. And I think you got to be more mentally tough than anything because I love what you said is I talk to myself because everybody has negative thoughts.
Oh, yeah, everybody.
You're always going to, but if you start listening to those negative thoughts, then all of a sudden negativity comes out of you. But if you start talking to yourself, then it's like, you know what? Hey, get out of here, negative thoughts. Yeah. I got a purpose. Yes. I'm going after this purpose.
Yes. Yeah. And tap back into that passion. There's a reason why you started doing this. Tap back into that. And I think that works in every phase of life, man. Business, your relationships, why did I get into this marriage in the first place? Well, because I love them, and there's some reasons why I love them. And you go back to that and that's what you tap into. If you continue to think that, because here's the thing, I tell people all the time, I can look at every person and within 5 minutes of talking to them find something negative about them.
Of course.
That's everybody. We have something that, I don't know, he's a little short, maybe not, whatever, but if that's what you stay on, it's going to be a toxic situation, not only for you, but for the two people involved. So you want to flip the switch and find something positive. What is it about that person that makes them a good person? What is some things you like? And all of a sudden your perspective about that person and the situation completely changes and it changes your energy. So
man, that's awesome. Yeah. So if somebody says, man, I love listening to JR, how can I get some one-on-one time to get him start training my son for quarterback? How do they get in contact with you? I'm
old school. You can give me a call. I'm 770-301-2110. But you can call me. I'm Heck, the government has my number, so I don't figure everybody else might as well. But yeah, I mean, call me, text me. Don't be a stranger. Or you can, if you're a social media person, I'm on Facebook, JR Revere, on Facebook, Instagram. I'm JR or Revere 9, Twitter, JR Revere 9. At JR Revere 9, I think we use the @ or whatever, but just JR Revere 9, JR Revere. You can find me on any of those platforms, and you can inbox me. You can get in touch with me anyway. Because like I said, I'm in the business of building dreams and helping kids and people in general, not just kids, but anybody, achieve their greatest potential. Because like I said, when I look back on my life, Jonathan, there were so many people that poured into me. I'm not where I am in life because I just got here by myself. There was a community of people, right here that are still living here,
right.
That were responsible for my success, and I haven't forgotten them. And I'm doing a better job that when I see those people, I let them know that, hey, thank you. I really appreciate it. But yeah, I'm in a position now where, and I tell these youngsters all the time, look, man, you would really enjoy my experiences. You would kill to be able to experience the things I experienced and play on the levels that I played on and be able to see things and, play big and big, whatever, you would love that. And I can tell you how to do it. And so I'm in that position. So I'm trying to do that to the best of my ability.
Well, I love it, man. I appreciate you sewing into the community like you are.
Yeah, man. I enjoy it. Well, I enjoy it.
Thanks for having us. And look, reach out to JR if you want some good mentorship in your life. I mean, you hear him right now. This is just a small tidbit of what the Revere family is all about.
Yeah, a lot of energy. Yeah,
Lots of energy.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for stopping by today, man.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me.